What if your partner's anger issues is not just about them, but the type of person you are as well? Could your role in the partnership be actually fueling your partner's anger? Understanding the type of spouse that you attract can reveal lots about your own emotional landscape. Hi everyone, it's Miss Steele. Today we're going to be delving into a really fascinating subject that I thought about the other day. And this is based on I always look at myself to improve. I never look at the other person. Of course we judge, but in the end, I retreat, I go to my room and I think, how could I have made this better? The dynamics in your relationship could be a mirror reflecting back to you the types of spouses that people with anger issues gravitate towards or choose. So, as a past domestic abuse person, I thought, can we spot this? I've discovered that understanding these dynamics can really shed light on why certain relationships unfold the way they do. You ever wonder why you repeat the same thing? Especially with those with hidden anger issues, those we think don't have an anger problem. They just manifest as body aches and pain or illness. That's suppressed anger. We'll explore 7 common types of spouses and discuss the underlying factors that influence these choices. Before we begin, I want to stress that it's okay if you see yourself in one of these relation dynamics that we will speak about. Don't let it make you feel overwhelmed or misunderstood. It's okay. You just didn't know how to set boundaries or speak properly to your spouse, and you're not alone. Many of us go through similar experiences and challenges simply because of who we are at our core. I myself went through many of these challenges with complex PTSD developed from not fitting in when I was a child and always teased by the other kids. And that went through all my school years and into high school, where it even got worse. Simply because of who we are at our core, we were made to feel unworthy, isolated, or lonely. But you're not alone. I myself have faced challenges, myself with complex PTSD, and being on the autism spectrum, I was prone to bullying. By the end of this video, you will have a real grasp on relational patterns and how to foster healthier connections. So let's get started. The first spouse that a person with unresolved anger issues is attracted to is called the caregiver. This is also known as the fixer, the overgiving spouse. Now, this can also be called the fixer, the overgiving spouse, or the codependent spouse. The characteristics of this spouse is a nurturer, very empathetic, and they feel a strong need to help or to fix others. So the caregiver unconsciously knows that there's unresolved anger in there. The caregiver sees someone who needs their support and understanding, which can create a dependency where the caregiver constantly tries to manage or soothe the angry partner. Let me give you some examples. So in one scenario, Mark constantly puts his well-being needs aside to take care of his wife, Linda, who has frequent mood swings. He avoids conflict by overly accommodating her every demand to keep the peace and frequently researches ways to help her manage her emotions, despite feeling disappointed when things don't improve. Scenario 2. Dave is married to Tom, who tends to be very critical. Dave tries to prevent his outbursts by overdoing household chores and showering him with affection. Scenario 3. Harry always covers up for his partner Q's financial irresponsibility. He's continually bailing them out to keep peace and avoid confrontation. He might also hint several times and try and find ways to them to learn how to be responsible, but it's to no avail. Hoarding also might be an issue in there. This is also known as the submissive spouse, the overly compliant spouse, the accommodating spouse, or another form of a codependent spouse. The characteristics of this spouse is they avoid confrontation, and so to avoid it, they are often compliant and allow the other's anger to control them. In the dynamics of the relationship, they excuse the anger to avoid conflict. They prioritize peace over their own personal needs. The enabler allows or excuses the angry partner's poor behavior just to avoid conflict in the moment. And by doing this, he or she actually reinforces the anger because there's no consequence. No boundary was put up. Because they prioritize peace, they suppress their own needs and emotions just to keep that angry partner calm. Anna hides her husband Matt's excessive drinking from friends and family while making excuses for his behavior to maintain harmony. Paul often calls in sick for his partner Kelly, who refuses to go to work due to anxiety and anger, thus protecting her from the consequences of her own actions. In scenario 3, Mark constantly apologizes on behalf of his moody spouse Diane, excusing her outbursts in social settings and trying to smooth things over with her friends. Now you'll notice that some of these categories are similar, but they have their own distinct marks. So this would be the emotionally distant type spouse. Also a peacemaker, like type 2. They prefer a stability and peace. They will tolerate outbursts, avoid addressing any core concerns, just to maintain what they feel is harmony. If there's no fights, they feel that the relationship is good. But if you are not discussing your fights and each person's needs are addressed, this can really increase resentment. Resentment in a relationship is extremely harmful. And if left unchecked, it will kill and destroy that relationship. Unhealed resentment from past relationships can move into the new relationship, because our souls are always looking to heal something past. So that's why, another reason why we're attracted to a spouse that can heal something that wasn't healed in the past. Unfortunately, if you do not recognize the pattern, you will just do the same thing again and again and again in each relationship. So hopefully you guys can heal together, recognizing this. Unhealed resentment carried over into a new relationship complicates and creates barriers to forming healthy connection. When your open and honest communication breaks down, usually after you've been together for a while, because you wouldn't put up with that when you're just dating, if you start to avoid discussing matters and you just both walk away and it's never done, this is when resentment will kick in. It will lead to misunderstandings because you can never discuss what you both meant. It will lead to miscommunication because you're just assuming what each other meant. And if these unresolved conflicts keep building up, there will be no more room left for resolution. So let's look at 3 scenarios from the conflict avoider. Alexa makes excuses for Sam's outburst, believing it's just stress from work. So Alexa allows the behaviors to continue, hoping Sam will change on his own. Scenario 2. Emma consistently defers to her partner Jane's judgment, even when she disagrees and has a different opinion, staying silent to prevent or trigger any potential arguments. Or Mia, who avoids conflict at all costs. When Tom starts to get angry, Mia goes silent immediately and starts agreeing with whatever he says. And then there's Mike, who lets his wife Susan control every aspect of their social life, their family planning, and he even fears her criticism if he objects to anything she's saying. The mirror is also called the victim spouse or the martyr. Now, what's interesting about this spouse is that they share similar anger issues, which can lead to mutual understanding of each other's struggles, but over time, this will lead to frequent conflicts and a volatile environment. Understanding your issues and taking action to properly heal them are 2 very different things. So let's look at some scenarios for that. Can you see Rachel, who feels helpless and trapped in her relationship because she often feels that her worth is tied to her partner's mood and believes she has no control over the situation when something negative happens? And then there's John, and John's identity is intertwined with his partner's well-being, leading him to adopt a martyr-like attitude. We can look at Emily. She believes that if she was a better spouse, that their relationship could be going smoother. So she's always blaming herself. This self-blame reinforces Emily's beliefs of inadequacy and helplessness, deepening her role as a victim in the relationship. So, for the victim or the mirror, they might even develop doing things that piss that partner off so that they can stay the victim, so that they, it goes to crying, I'm sorry, blah, 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 and it's just a cycle. Do you know what I mean? These are also known as the control-seeking partner, the dominant spouse, the transactional spouse, or quid pro quo spouse, the blamer. Now, these spouses are confident, they're very direct, they're capable, and they're capable of setting boundaries. Now, in this relationship, it has the potential to heal because the angry person can then recognize their unhealthy anger. It does carry the potential to also lead to more constructive ways of dealing with that anger. However, this carries a risk because of the power dynamic in that relationship. Let's look at some examples of that. Lisa often points fingers at John's angry outbursts, blaming his past for their problems. This dynamic just produces resentment and guilt. Mark takes the dominant approach in arguments with Sarah, making him quick to outline the solutions, and he sets boundaries. But whenever Sarah expresses her frustrations, Mark tends to take control of the conversation, ensuring that his viewpoints and solutions are prioritized. While this can help direct the conversation towards a resolution, it often lets Sarah feel unheard and underappreciated. And this is not good. Even if Mark is correct, she still needs to feel heard and appreciated, and her point of view, because she came from a different background. She came from a different view of life. So not hearing her and validating her feelings, right or wrong, this potentially leads to feelings of resentment. And then the third scenario, Emily is very direct in encouraging her partner, Tom, to face his fears and take proactive steps in both his career and their household responsibilities. She sets attainable goals for him, so it's not too high, and she pushes Tom to meet professional milestones, ensuring that he has a great way to talk to his boss or fellow employees, and it assures that he's doing his fair share of the chores at home. While this helps Tom grow and ensures the household runs smoothly, Tom starts to feel overwhelmed by Emily's constant pressure and making the goals for him, and he begins to doubt his own abilities and feels micromanaged, leading to stress and creating tension between them. Someone always has to come up with the idea themselves. You cannot do things for another person. It's not your way or the highway. It's helping them find a way of their way. And it's listening. Listening is so important, which is why we are called Listen Mission. The indirectly defiant spouse, or the detached spouse, or emotionally unavailable or distant spouse. And they're always submissive. Often exhibits behaviors that are indirectly defiant. They may agree to things, but not follow through. And they express their displeasure in subtle ways, and that leads to emotional distance. Their focus shifts to calming or the angry partner rather than resolving the initial subject it started out to be. So in other words, if the angry person searches for a spouse that will stand up to them, but immediately becomes passive or submissive, shuts down when their anger boils. So some example of these are: Rachel distances herself emotionally from her husband, Ben, who frequently loses his temper, especially if she's in a negative mood. She finds solace in engrossing herself in her work and hobbies and lets him do his own thing. This can end up like roommates, with Rachel feeling isolated and both partners losing their emotional connection. So if you notice that you're starting to not do as much things together, better look at that. Lori avoids discussing any meaningful issues with her husband, Steve, who tends to be explosive if she brings up finances, sex, or family issues. She maintains a surface level relationship to keep the peace. That's walking on eggshells. That feels like abuse. It is abuse. The lack of deep communication leads to unresolved issues, and they start to pile up, causing Lori to feel increasingly detached and unfulfilled in the marriage. And your sex life breaks down because you're not intimately connecting emotionally. That's so important before you can get to the physical. And lastly, scenario 3, Jules becomes increasingly independent and uninvolved with their partner, Sam, who is prone to bouts of anger. They choose to focus on their own life to escape the negativity. This creates a rift, with Jules and Sam's relationship suffering from the lack of intimacy and mutual support, leading to a life that feels also more like roommates than a partnership. So the other spouse is left guessing why they're angry, because they haven't come right out and told the spouse what they would like them to do or what they need help with. So they just start throwing things around because they can't find the keys, because they seem to think that because they said, I can't find my keys, that the spouse should automatically know to go help them. But that's not true, because some people like to find the keys on their own and don't need help. This type of partner procrastinates or avoids tasks or requests or expectations that their partner has asked them to do. They hold on to grudges and they express their dissatisfaction through subtle actions, and they frequently deny that they're upset, yet they exhibit behaviors that show otherwise. And they often make their partner feel like they were at fault. Now, this creates emotional distance, making it hard to address any issue, especially the underlying issue. This leads to unresolved conflicts, and tension builds over time due to the lack of open communication, and results in reoccurring issues that go over and over and over again because they're never resolved. This spouse employs guilt tripping or passive frustration and confusion to the other spouse. But the cycle of miscommunication leads to misunderstandings, making resolution or growth very challenging. While it's important to note that even though I've outlined 7 distinct spouse types that might attract people with anger issues, they do overlap, and you can see yourself in one or several. And that is okay. Relationships and personalities are layered on a spectrum, and it's not uncommon to see a blend of characteristics in yourself or in your partner or partners. Recognizing these patterns can be the first step into healing and understanding all types of relationships, family, friends, and spouses. So don't just critique them. You must look at yourself. Something within you is not being communicated properly to their style of communication.